So United States 1960, that would be a hard one to swallow, a black guy with all that. How about in Europe? Was it completely not noticeable in Europe?
Who would send somebody that flamboyant? Because in the budget, he also bought himself mink coats, mink hats, stick out like a sore thumb kind of thing. A lot of upper class people had, communist aspirations. He didn't know who was going to win the Cold War. And he was able to also drive through certain places where there might be a base here, a base there. He was unsuspectable. Mr. Innocuous, he's a chony. That's what Russians call black people. They call them chonies. Meanwhile, he's getting the information. He's doing the job. He'd make people disappear.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Was it 1960? He was there as this driver with a campaign with a car. What, about a $300,000 car? What was the budget then?
To start off his racing team, they gave him about $2 million.
Oh, honest to God. In 1960?
Yeah. Okay, so they sent him to race school. Okay, you remember, how much was a brand new three-wheel GT? Right off the showroom floor. That was a $280,000 car.
Oh, so there's your $300,000.
Yeah, so couple of engines, couple of tires, track time, fuel, crew. Then he had a Lotus, open wheel with that cigar body. Yeah, so he had one of those. Now that's another couple $100,000 for a race car. He had a Maserati, 2-seat for grand touring. That's not $100,000.
All right, so United States 1960, that would be a hard one to swallow, a black guy with all that. How about in Europe? Was it completely not noticeable in Europe?
Who would send somebody that flamboyant? Because in the budget, he also bought himself mink coats, mink hats, stick out like a sore thumb kind of thing. Look like the part. And that was the whole thing. Because no one's going to think this loud black guy who's, he's wearing jewelry, he looks good. He's hanging out with Britt Volvo, Sally Ringling, Susie Firestone. He's being a player, that lifestyle, and racing cars.
Was he playing a European, or what accent did he have?
No, they knew he was American. But who would think this American was a spy? In the 1960s, they're lynching black people. They're beating the shit out of them in the streets. They're you turn on the TV and look, they just fire hose 50 of them. It's the beginning of civil rights, and it's nasty, and it's not okay. It's the back of the bus, the back of the building, the back door, the garden hose water fountain, the you are a second-class citizen, get used to it no matter what city you're in America. So him going over there and racing, no one ever batted an eye. No. He's the next thing. He made some money, and he's doing this, yes. He's over here because we're civilized. So that was kind of the mindset that the intelligence services came up with.
What was the mission? Because you said inspiring terror. We're talking about you said SPOOK, inspiring terror.
Yes. So let's say somebody in a supposedly friendly government was talking to the communists, right? And they're in the upper class, right? A lot of upper class people had, communist aspirations. You didn't know who was going to win the Cold War. So people who were of influence, they might not do that anymore. Maybe this ally has somebody that our agencies find out is a turncoat or a double agent. They don't anymore. So that's what he did through Europe. And he was able to also drive through certain places where there might be a base here, a base there. So if there was a micro camera on his car somewhere, no one looked. He's just a race car driver, and he's black. He was able to go places and do things that no one else could do because no one would suspect him. He was unsuspectable. Mr. Innocuous, he's a chony. That's what Russians call black people. They call them chonies. Meanwhile, he's getting the information. He's doing the job. And if that asshole who's talking to Russians disappeared that week, couldn't have been the black guy. Or if that asshole couldn't have been a black guy.
It's cover not blown.
Or if this agency got broken into, cover not blown, yeah.
Any idea, did he tell you, or in any documentation that you found after he died or that your mom has, Any idea what any of the mission could be? I mean, I'm picturing a James Bond movie, right? So I'm picturing microfilm and taking pictures.
So, say for instance, the Soviets had a guy in France, right? And the guy was working with NATO because NATO was a new thing, still in developing, and they had a nice hardcover guy. Then it was his job to go in and remove that guy. But the French couldn't know because you can't do operations on another country's soil without telling them, and everyone back then was afraid of leaks. So he'd make people disappear. And it worked. It was successful until probably 65, 66 when he decided it was time to go. It was the whole mystique of the black race car driver in Europe is played out. He said, they kind of got hit to the game when you'd show up in the town and their man would disappear. So he said it was his time to end it. He did it until he wasn't able to do it anymore. And when they cut the budget, he couldn't afford to be a race car driver, especially since it wasn't his premier occupation. He was busy shooting people.
Was he the one doing the disappearing?
Yeah, he'd make people disappear.
Oh,
yeah,
well, I didn't know if he was like reporting to the government that this is the guy, and now they send the assassin in. He was the one.
Yeah. He was the one who'd make them disappear. He'd say, he'd say, hey, look, I do bad things to worse people who want to do worse things to good people. And that was it. And he was a firm believer in that. He said, you got to believe in your country and your ideas. He said, and if somebody really, really, really was going to do something that would fuck America over, he said, then there's no limit on what you can do or how you're going to do it. He said, there's no question about it.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.